Day one of Jaguars training camp is in the books. We got Doug Pederson talking, and we heard from Trevor Lawrence and Tyson Campbell. I'll tell you who showed off a little bit today, too, in just a second here on Locked on Jaguars.
You are Locked on Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
I heard what you said. It is your team every day here on Locked on Jaguars, and we thank you for making us your first listen. A quick reminder of where to find us. One place is on YouTube. That's right, at the Locked on Jaguars page. Make sure you go over there and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and then hit the bell so you receive notifications each and every time we drop a show. And then for your audio podcast, make sure wherever you listen to your audio podcast, when you're at work or driving your car or cooking or doing whatever, make sure you tap into that location so you do not miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Shout out to the everydayers. I saw too many of y'all today to mention all of y'all's names, but I appreciate y'all being an everydayer and giving the Jaguars attention to me here, Tony Wiggins, and trusting me to bring you everything you need to hear. All right, let's just get right down to it. Trevor and Tyson speak. I'll play videos of each one of them. Bear with me while I get those together. Oh, just something. I'll play a long one where Tyson Campbell talked about the things that motivated him to be, to get up to date. He said, hey, man, it's the start of camp. Today's the start of camp. Trevor Lawrence also talked about how being close to guys on the team helps in the long run. Segment 2, a word from Doug P. Doug Pederson spoke prior to the start of camp and had a couple of interesting answers to some of the questions. Some of them were funny too, but we'll talk about that. First and foremost, tell you about today and the standouts from today. Jarrian Jones. And I'm going to tell y'all, the people that know me know that I love Florida State, right? So anybody else that knows me will tell you that it's not. Florida State, once they leave school, I want them to be the absolute best, but I don't cloud my NFL judgment with where they went to school. But that kid showed up with some competitive stuff today, and he looked really, really good. And Caleb Johnson, we talked about potential players that would be fighting for roster spots and positions. Caleb Johnson today, I'm telling you, if this coaching staff didn't know who he was, you'd have thought it was a dude that was supposed to be starting, because in coverage, he was outstanding. I think he had 2 interceptions. I know he had at least 1 and maybe another one where he knocked the ball down, but I think he had 2. So shout out to him. I'm gonna tell you right now, I stood right behind Chris Richard when they were doing 11 on 11. Now, granted, I'm gonna set the scene for you first. Shorts, protective helmets, no shoulder pads. So every year we have to give this disclaimer that what we're seeing, I even lost a friend for a little while over this because I didn't give the disclaimer, that what we're seeing is shorts, protective helmets, no shoulder pads. We're not mistaking it for real football. We often talk about real football. In fact, some people even call today, instead of calling it day 1, they call it day 0 because it's a feeling out process. Doug even had some words about wanting to see knowledge retention from some of the young guys and some of the new guys between what is now and what was training camp or mini camp, not training camp, but mini camp and off-season activities, to see what they've been able to retain up to this point. So I think it's a little bit of a feeling out process, right? But if I'm a coach and I'm new here, all things being equal and relative, even in that feeling out process, you still want to see, okay, we're measuring everybody all day long. That's what we're doing. I don't care if it's in the weight room, which as hot as it was out there and the practice lasted a few hours, those dudes went in and went straight and started lifting weights. So the day in the training camp part may be over for the media and it may be over for the fans, but I can tell you right now, they're over there getting it. They're over there working out right now. Their day lasts a long time. They won't be leaving that facility for quite a long time. Jarrian Jones has a competitive nature about himself that I knew existed. But you always wonder, like, when you get out here amongst the real deal NFL players and grown men, will you get small because you're a rookie, or will you still try to stand tall? He stood tall. Jarrian Jones did a good job. A couple of times they had to line him up a little bit. Hey, get out of there, back off, especially when he was the corner on the side, wherever the slot lined up, and he was playing outside. So those type of things are the things that you're going to see guys pick up and guys learn. But he was actually, I wouldn't say he was beat, but it was a great throw. I think it was Trevor that made the pass to the corner of the end zone where Jarrian had lined up in the slot and somebody did an out route towards the corner. Good route, good coverage, great pass. Exactly where it was supposed to be. Guy goes up, he extends it, catches it. I think it was Devin Duvernay, if I'm not mistaken. It could have been Devin Duvernay, or it might have been somebody else. The second he's coming down with it, Jarrian Jones comes in, whop, in a split second. I sound like Kendrick Lamar, whop. But he knocked the ball out, and then he does the Matumbo to the crowd. And the crowd went crazy over the catch, but then they even went crazier over the fact that he dislodged the ball before the second foot came down and made the pass incomplete. And Chris Richard went crazy too. Loved it. There were some other instances where guys just played well, man. They looked fluid. They looked athletic. They looked longer in the secondary. Darnell Savage looks like a savage. Get to him later because Doug mentioned him. Caleb Johnson, linebacker, 6'2", 220 pounds, runs like the wind. And let me tell you something. If there was a day one dude that I said I didn't have him making the roster, I think my friend Demetrius Harvey actually did. But if there was a day one dude that I didn't have making my 53 that I said, who the hell is that? That's him. He's number 57 in case you guys go out to any of the practices. Tell me that dude doesn't move sideline to sideline quickly. He gets there in a hurry. He's good in coverage. He finds the ball. I might say this, and I'm going to be honest with you. He might be the one linebacker that pops on tape the way Telvin Smith used to with his speed. We got to watch him. Caleb Johnson is now my player to watch for the rest of training camp because I told you that there was going to be competition at those linebacker positions backing up those starters. Caleb Johnson is letting y'all know, and I had heard his name mentioned in the past as a dude that they really, really like. They like his work ethic. I'm telling you. Mark my word. I think that the kind of explosiveness I saw today, I think is going to continue throughout training camp. And I think we're going to sit here and be looking at Caleb Johnson as a dude that come about the second or third week of preseason. Doug Pederson talked about his plan for that too. I'm telling you, man, Caleb Johnson's going to make this squad. I already know Jarrian Jones is going to make it. I'm just wondering if he's going to start or not. Good play from the DBs, good play, competitiveness from the wide receivers. Without real pads on, it's hard to tell who was doing what in the trenches. But I will tell you this, the defensive line looked the part. They absolutely looked the part. They're the best looking group I've seen here in quite a long time. Doug Pederson talked about the team. He spoke prior to, I'll tell you the question that I asked him and the question that other people asked. Some of them were crazy, but we ain't gonna knock nobody because it's the first day of camp. But we'll get to that, and I'll tell you who Doug Pederson surprisingly said was the one who not really reminds. He says I guess you can put him in that boat. Somebody was asking about Jack Lambert. Shout out to the Steel Curtain, but it was Jack Lambert's birthday, and then they said, "Well, do you have an impact guy like that?" But tell you who he mentioned, and it might shock you. We'll do it in segment number 2 here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Gametime. That's right. Have you ever procrastinated and didn't buy tickets to something that you wanted to go to, whether it was a sporting event, a play, a show, a musical, a concert, anything? Or have you had to wait because you had to wait to payday, and payday was the day of the concert, and you felt like you had procrastinated, right? Well, Gametime says don't worry about that. Gametime says whatever you didn't do, we're going to do it right now. We'll do it at the last minute because they prioritize last minute deals where you can save up to 60% off buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and all of that stuff. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets. That's hot right now. Go see your favorite pictures and get those tickets with Gametime. Don't let nobody tell you that your lack of planning is not their emergency. Oh, no, it is Gametime's emergency. It's their job to get you right. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, segment number 2 here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to those everydayers who yelled my name today, and it's too hot and too many of y'all to remember everybody, but if you were there, I heard you. All right, so let's just get around to it. Doug Pederson came out at about 8:15 this morning. Hadn't had my coffee yet, but I was wide awake, believe it or not. And he spoke and talked about all things training camp. And there were a couple of guys that were out today. Keelan Robinson was one, kind of got nicked up a little bit. Eric Armstead is being held out. I did ask someone what was the reason, and it was a little bit of a meniscus. But Doug did talk about Armstead being a guy who could really help Trayvon and help Trayvon get to that next level because they are very similar in body type, very similar in playing styles, a little bit of an inside-out sort of combination there. And I believe it. I think they're going to really help out. Somebody asked a question about they used the fact that it was Jack Lambert, a Hall of Fame Jack Lambert, Steel Curtain Jack Lambert's birthday yesterday. He said, do you have anybody like that? Doug Pederson mentioned that Foye Oluokun has like led the league in tackles like the last few years or so. I think over the last 3 years, nobody has more tackles than Foye Oluokun. That's why they re-signed him. And said that you could probably put him in that category maybe because the game has changed a little bit. But if you have a dog, if you have that one guy on this team that's going to bark and bite faster than anybody, it's very interesting who he said. He said Darnell Savage. Just newly acquired Darnell Savage. Haven't seen him in game action yet. But for a coach to come out and say something like that on day one of camp, when all you really done is seen the guy running around in shorts, Darnell Savage must have had a big impact on this team or whoever decided it was good to go after him as a free agent. Because normally those are things that are reserved for people that you've actually seen in action. For you, not anybody else. Well, Darnell Savage hasn't played a lick here yet, and Doug Pederson said Darnell Savage. That's our pit bull. That's our junkyard dog, basically. And I'm paraphrasing because that's not what he said, but that's what I took from it. Very, very interesting comments. Very interesting comments that whatever he's doing in that building or whatever they have seen on tape or whatever kind of setup he has, or whatever he represents and however he carries himself and however he rolls, however you want to call it, whatever slang you want to use, Darnell Savage is the dude that Doug Pederson already stamped. There he is right there. That's our guy. That physicality that you need from the slot. And make no mistake, that's where he's playing. Anybody who thought he wasn't going to play the slot, I tried to tell you. He's going to play the slot, man. He's lined up right there. When they break the huddle, you see Cisco like I thought I would. You see Antonio Johnson like I thought I would. And then you see behind the linebackers and right in front of them, you see Darnell Savage, and all he does is wait to see which side the tight end goes to or which side the third receiver goes to, and he goes right over there. Darnell Savage is your interior slot / safety, and he's going to roam around and make a lot of plays. Andre Cisco, I spoke to him briefly, didn't record it. Andre Cisco looks yoked as usual, looks like he's ready to go. Really, really spiritual dude, man. And I think there's a theme, and this isn't about having a team full of dudes to go to Bible study, which if you do, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that either. I was a Sunday school teacher, so I know the importance of that if you want it to be something that's important to you. So what it does speak to you about is, it doesn't mean that these guys don't go out and these guys don't have a good time, but it does seem to indicate that they have some sort of balance. And not just him, but Tyson Campbell in his comments. He gave God all the praise for him getting his contract. And it looks at it as a huge responsibility for him to go out and play well. And the thing is when you start seeing and hearing guys that speak like that, it doesn't inherently, in my opinion, make them better than other people. But it does say that where they are, that there's going to be enough balance to them where they're not overdoing it in the refreshment side of life. And by refreshment, you know what I mean. That's when you just let your head down and cut loose a little bit. That means that they're not doing that are probably leaning more towards doing and putting the work in. And some people, some front office folks really, really, really love that. I think it's a good characteristic to have. The fact that at least for these 10 years while you're going to be playing in the NFL, to prioritize that and prioritize your diet, get you some rest, go out and have as much fun on the field as you want to. And then when you retire, then that's when you go have your Mai Tais and all of that stuff all the time, right? Everything has to be done within balance. I asked Doug Pederson this question. Based on the talk last year about sitting there waiting for things to happen, just waiting and things not come, and then them not figuring out what happened. They were like, man, at some point we was kind of waiting for it to happen. I said, well, Doug, what message do you send to the team basically where you're not waiting, where you go out and actually make that happen? And he talked about the approach. He talked about making sure, injuries happen to everybody. He mainly spoke about guys got to be next up. He mentioned next man up. He said, we got to be like that. We have to invest more into our young players, coach everybody up from all the way from the bottom, because you're going to need them by the end of the season. You're going to be playing a lot of guys with a lot of snaps, and you hope that you have spent enough time with those dudes. He said you just can't focus on the core. And I think that that's what happened. But we have to remember, the core of the Jaguars is still very young, and they were even more young last year. So I'll give Doug a little bit of a break on that, because you're still basically asking NFL babies at that time to go out and compete against people who are already greased up and already primed and already had experience in the NFL. So I can understand why there's a little bit of overkill trying to get those dudes over the hump. And maybe the thought was they'd get them over the hump and then they'd focus more on all of those other players. So for the first time, I heard Doug basically admit that they probably didn't put as much time into their younger players than they did those young players who are already playing old roles. So I find it very, very interesting that he decided that we need to coach everybody, and we need to take. If you remember me here on this podcast, you've been here long enough. I ain't talking about always since the pandemic. I'm just talking. If you've been here long enough, you heard me say I'm tired of these wasted roster spots on dudes that just check off certain boxes. Special teams guy. Okay, yeah, that's all. No, everybody on this team needs to be ready to contribute, and they won't, because there won't be room for that. But you still need to take the approach that that's what you're trying to do. We can't waste anything, because if you never spend that time and you never invest it, all these little things start happening like last year, and then you look at them and it's like, basically you're telling them, we need you to do something we ain't prepared you for. And that's never a good thing to be doing. So that's what I took away from the press conference today, besides somebody bringing up Jack Lambert for some reason. But other than that, That's what I got from it. And I think it's all a breath of fresh air. Y'all gonna have to stop me from getting so giddy and being so happy about the way things are going right now, because it's almost as if you write down a blueprint, the Jaguars followed it to a T. Third segment, heard from Trevor. I'll show you briefly what he said about being friendly with his wide receiver core. And then we heard from Tyson Campbell. I'll tell you how Tyson Campbell sounds, some of the things that he said about having his contract and how he approaches every single thing and how he's approaching it right now since he got his money. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. eBay Motors. Man, let me explain something to you. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. I have to remind you that if you're watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and have to turn down the volume with all that shouting and screaming, then make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Well, your quarterback spoke, talked about how important it is to have relationships. And I think he was really, really cool with those receivers that were on the team last year. But he kind of mentioned this one as if he may want to take it a little bit further. Let you know right now exactly what Trevor Lawrence said here today on Locked On Jaguars.
For on our team is everyone is pretty tight, so I think that's important for your team moving forward, and it's something that we've really stressed this offseason is building those relationships, because it matters, come into the season when situations get tough. You want to be able to count on the guy next to you and really know him, not just as a player but as a person.
With all the ailments that happen at the end of the season for you personally, how long did it take you to finally feel 100%?
It was probably getting close to March. I'd say that's kind of what I would say is March. I felt pretty good. Started training hard again. I did some stuff before that, but it was really just trying to get healthy and not push too hard early so I could get my body back. But yeah, just a couple things linger in, and then you obviously nurse those the back half of the season and never have a chance to heal. So it takes some time to work through it.
And being as durable.
All right, it's your man Trevor Lawrence, as he discussed two things: getting to know and hanging out with the wide receivers, the other guys in that room, and knowing them off the field, not just on the field. And then the other thing he spoke on was how he got his body back together. So he says, after getting nicked up and having whatever work he needed to get done, it was March before he really started to get back into it. Now, he noticeably, even though I will admit, because of surgery I had, I wasn't around the team as much last year, but he was noticeably a little bit more muscular to me. And he looked bigger, looked more powerful, looked more comfortable. And that was something else that we were hoping to see. And we got a chance to see that also. We also heard from Tyson Campbell, and Tyson Campbell gave us a mouthful about what it's like for him after receiving his big contract.
Still trying to be a leader for the young guys to be able to be in a position like this.
Do you think I need to now up my game even more, maybe, to
I mean, that's an every year mindset, to get better, even every day, to find something to get better at and to master your skills. So I feel like I always had the work ethic. So, getting better and trying to be better and having ambition is not new to me. No, man, I'm my biggest critic. So I'm not worried about what anybody has to say about me or feels about me. I'm me, you feel me? So nobody can get me into hell or let me into heaven, so except God. So, I'm focusing on this team and trying to be in a position to help this team win. Yeah, man. We're, yesterday in this whole camp, we're trying to build a standard around.
And that is Tyson Campbell talking about standards. Says nobody can get me into heaven and nobody can get me into hell either. It's all on me. And I love the accountability aspect of it. I love the fact that kid woke up a couple of days after, getting life-changing money, generational money to help his family, $53 million guaranteed, $76 million overall. And he still looks at this like an entire blessing that is incomplete. It is incomplete until he gets on the field and actually has to go out and play and perform. And I love the fact that even though he's 25 years old, I think 25 years old, 25, 26, he says we got to be an example for the young guys. Isn't it funny how I look at people that's 30 years old as young in these other professions, right? You got to do this. The NFL is different. In NFL years, if you had, like they do dog years, well, in NFL years, a 21-year-old is like a 30-year-old, and a 26-year-old is like a 38-year-old, right? And a 30-year-old is like a 42-year-old in the NFL. That's just the way it goes. If you see a dude 35 in the NFL, he's like 50. I'm serious. So, they age quickly. The lifespan is 5 to 10 years for some people. Some with quarterbacks is a little bit more than that. And you already see he's trying to be an example for the younger players, but he still has a lot to prove himself. I heard Andre Sisco say he thinks Tyson Campbell is one of the best corners in the league, and it's going to show. Interesting something Doug said, and that clip was a little bit cut off. Doug said that he believes the scheme, and we talked about this on Locked On Jaguars. If you were here, you knew it. He said the scheme's going to help Tyson Campbell. And basically what that means is it's not going to help him like a kickstand. It's not going to help him like training wheels. What it's going to help is it's going to help him show, and it's going to help him display skills that a lot of us probably didn't know he had, because his role is going to be defined. He's going to be in the same spot, according to Doug Pederson, all the time. And he could just batten that down and could focus on that. And that's what he means. The scheme is going to basically magnify and allow everybody to see what the Jaguars already believe that they have in Tyson Campbell. So therefore, I think we got a lot to look forward to. And we got a lot more to come with training camp, with updates. Check out all the social medias. When you go on YouTube, look at the YouTube shorts as well. We're going to put some shorts up. The one you just saw will also be there. Tyson Campbell's the real deal, man, and I think the Jaguars did a good job to pay him, and I think Andre Sisco is probably going to be next, and it's probably going to be at some point in the next few weeks, but that's just on me. I didn't get any information from anybody, but that's just what I think. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day, with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. And you can find me here on Locked On Jaguars every single day, giving you comprehensive coverage during training camp. I'm going to make as many of those practices as I possibly can and give you sometimes video from training camps. Make sure you check in on social media, but check in and also on YouTube. Make sure you hit the like button, and then also wherever you get your podcast, and also on the free Fire TV channels app on Amazon. So make sure you check that out, and we'll be here every single day, because it's your team every day. Come back tomorrow, man. I'll have some more stuff for you. More stuff from training camp. Hopefully no surprises, right? We don't like surprises unless they're good ones. So check in. I'll get out there bright and early in the morning, and I'll give it to you tomorrow when you come back for more here on Locked On Jaguars. Take care.